I was at Pitt between 2010 and 2016, finished my PhD program in the School of Education, Administrative Studies Department. And currently I am working as a research associate at the City University of New York's Institute for Local and State Governance. The reason why I chose PhD versus all other possibilities is after my bachelor, I worked for about 4 years before I went to a master's. And after my master's, I worked again around 4 or 5 years. And then with all of those work experiences, I thought I was ready to come back to school for a PhD program. So it was really, for me, the choice was between going back to school or continue working and building my career professionally. And my choice at the time was to go back to school and finish and gain a doctorate program. So that's a little bit of my background. Thank you.
Thank you, Otgo. You bring up a really good point that everyone has a different journey. I too went back for my PhD. I think I was like 36 or something. And I was like the old lady in the program. But, you know, we're all just on our own journey and it can look really different for others. Good. Ashley, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. First, I'd like to say that I am traveling. So if ever my internet is a little wonky or goes out and you need me to repeat something, please just let me know. I'm actually heading to a conference, so it's very exciting. But hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Shafer. I am currently a postdoctoral associate at the Office of Child Development, Family Foundation's Early Head Start here at the University of Pittsburgh. I got my PhD. I just graduated in April in applied developmental psychology with a minor in research methods. A little bit to say, like briefly, broad stroke, my research focuses on improving the early childhood experience through building social and emotional skills, parent-child relationships, and socially just teaching practices. So why did I pick Pitt and why did I continue on to the PhD program? So I'm actually a 3-time alum of Pitt. So hail to Pitt, big time here, big fan. And I started at Pitt in my undergrad when I found out that I loved development and research. I was like, oh, applied developmental psychology, this is for me. And I just continued throughout because I have been offered so many experiences, from working in the Pittsburgh community to conducting my own research to working on grants, doing professional development trainings. I've just had these unbounded experiences and been able to develop really authentic and deep relationships with my peers and with my faculty members here. So when it came time to apply to PhD programs, because I knew I wanted to do research and I would need a PhD for that. So I continued on my education for that reason. But I picked to stay here at Pitt because of all these experiences and the relationships that I've developed. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ashley. Ed, you're next.
Well, hello, everyone. I guess I'm the senior member here because I got my PhD in the curriculum and supervision when that department existed back in 1980. I was a teacher and a coach, became a coordinator of staff development and strategic planning, moved on to assistant superintendent, and when I retired, I was a member of the Distinguished Educator Program here in Pennsylvania. The reason I decided to pursue a PhD, I was teaching and I really didn't think schools were focusing enough on the knitting, curriculum and instruction, what's taught, how it's taught. And the state at that time was talking about putting in a requirement that school districts actually have a certified curriculum instruction person. And it was going to be a certificate for that. And Pitt was offering that program. And so that's what I did. I got into the program because as a teacher, I wanted to move to that level and be more supportive of my peers, I guess, in the sense of, providing that support. I might add, I'm still not convinced that's being done.
Thank you, Ed. We appreciate your expertise. So the next question, just kind of opening up to the panel, so you can chime in if this is something that you feel like you can really contribute to. Is there something that you wish you knew before entering a PhD program? And if so, what is it and why? I can.
Well, I could add one
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead, Ed. Go ahead.
I don't think I was aware when I began how significant the members of the panel would be and my advisors. They were absolutely essential, because I've known other people who ended up ABD, never finished, and sometimes I think that's where the breakdown was. They weren't working with the people that they needed to be working with. Not a negative reflection on any of them, maybe it was just a mismatch, but that was really a critical component that I don't think I thought about at all entering the program.
So true. Very good. Otgo, you had something to add?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, there are many things that I wish I knew when I was starting the program. But I think if you asked me to pick one, I would definitely pick this one, which is I wish I had thought thoroughly and more carefully in the beginning of my program whether I'm going to pursue the academic path or the applied research path after I graduate. Once I get my degree, which one of these two is going to be my pursuit? I wish I had thought a little more about it in the beginning of my program. I think I definitely didn't. So at that time when I was going through the program, I think my priority was really on successfully finishing the program, meeting all the requirements, getting all the credits I needed to collect, and then passing the comp exams and proposals, all those things. I think I was thinking less about what's next, what happens after I get this degree when I defend my dissertation. So, because depending on which of those two paths you're going to choose, that decision will inform the whole PhD program, the experience, your PhD experience a lot, I realized. So I would definitely, if anyone is considering of starting a PhD, I would definitely ask them to think about this a little more. And I know that not everyone will have very clear picture or answer to this question, what I'm going to do next. But I think having some ideas in terms of whether teaching and being as an academician or going and teaching in a university or college level, or do I just want to work in a research institute and carry out and conduct different research projects, having some idea which of these two you want to do will actually inform a lot of your experience and how you're going to through those 3 or 4 years of your PhD program.
I think that's really good advice and really good insight. And I appreciate you bringing that up. Ashley, you were shaking your head. Do you agree with that?
Oh my gosh, so much. And I think you're really right, Otgo, that you might not know exactly when you first start which path you're going to take or which one you're interested in and want to go into, but it's a good thing to think about, definitely. And I think something that I wish I knew was how to say no. I think when you, at least for myself, I'll speak for myself, when I came into the PhD program, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be on every research project. I wanted to take every class. I wanted to do every extracurricular activity, go to all the football game events and go to the student clubs and all of that. I wanted to be part of everything and get all these experiences. And saying no to some things is it's a skill to learn, because when you do too much, you're not able to really focus on what you're getting your PhD for, and that's to follow your interests, the questions that you're inspired to answer. So definitely learning how to say no and being confident that you're not really missing out on too many opportunities. Like another one will come along if you're too busy right now. So I think that's some advice I would give.
That's really good advice. That's a life skill, really, that you can work on in your PhD that you'll need the rest of your life, right? Prioritizing what's most important that you should be committing to and not overcommitting. Really good. Okay, next question. Could you tell us a little bit about your job search experience after graduation, and maybe anything you learned from that experience, but sort of the path from graduation to maybe what you did next, or led you into what you're doing now? Otgo, do you want to go first?
Sure. So before I jump into my experience of job searching, again, I think that your job searching is also going to depend a lot on whether you have thought about those two paths in the beginning, how that kind of informed the whole process of your PhD program, how that informed your dissertation process, what kind of dissertation you wrote, and how the dissertation information, outcomes, and results are going to help you in your job search process. So I feel like it's really important to think about those paths in the beginning, because you're gonna need to think about those things when you start searching for a job as well. So it's all kind of interrelated. But because I did not think about it in the beginning of my project, so my job search was relatively long, intense process. I realized that once I finished everything, if you wanted to follow the path of academia and be a professor at a university or college level, you needed certain things already in hand in order to be able to apply to that kind of jobs. I realized that my PhD experience did not really give me those things that I needed to apply for teaching positions. So most of my PhD experience was very much related to and informed by hands-on applied research experiences. So I said, okay, I did try applying for a number of teaching positions, which were all very unsuccessful. Then I thought about, okay, how did I spend my 5 years of PhD? What was the things that I was focused on more? And I realized applied research, doing actual hands-on research and managing large-scale, big research projects with different research teams. And I thought, okay, this is my strength. This is what I need to use now in my job searching process. So that's the path I started kind of following, and I applied to lots of research positions, and those were universities, institutes, research organizations, non-for-profit organizations that do research as a big arm of their organization. So it really varied. And the emphasis of my application package really was all of my experiences that I gained during my PhD program, and working with these different types of research groups and teams, and which came from like universities or other organizations outside, non-academic organizations, communities, etc. So that is kind of the path I followed, and it was a long process. I just want to mention that I sent out, and again, I don't want to discourage anyone. I know that my case is one of the maybe like exceptional fewer case, maybe because my job search process was not one of the easy ones, but I did send out almost 100 different applications to various different research organizations. And I had many interview processes. many layers of interviews as well. And then, yes, some of them worked out, and I had really good interview experiences as well. And my first job after PhD was actually a research project at New York University in New York City. So, and that's where I kind of just followed. And now I'm at the City University of New York as a research associate in one of the main research institute of the university. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Otgo. You actually got at one of the questions we were getting through the chat, which was, what are some of the experiences that you recommend prioritizing to prepare for either a future research or a future faculty position? So you really got at another question too, which is really helpful, because you're right, depending upon where sort of people see themselves, they sort of need to spend their time within their PhD beefing up their CV for that direction. And it's okay to change your mind too. And like Ashley said, it's okay to say no in order to prioritize. So yeah, that was really good insight, Otgo. Ashley, do you want to go next with the question about the job search experience when you came out of your program?
Definitely. So similar experience applying far and wide. I knew though, from my specific situation, that I wasn't going to leave Pittsburgh. So I was looking for a lot of remote jobs, something that is in the city. We have a lot of universities here, so I knew, and agencies and nonprofits. I knew that I wanted to do research. I did not want to go the tenure track route, but I did want to do research. I wanted to use those skills, all those skills I learned from my PhD. And there's various things that you can do with that outside of a tenure track faculty position. Through my application process, I actually leveraged my relationship with my my job right now, Family Foundation's Early Head Start. So I had actually worked with them the last 2 years of my PhD as a graduate student researcher. And, working together for those 2 years, we developed relationships, and I was able to then secure the opportunity for a postdoc. So that sometimes I know that that's a little unique. Usually you don't make your own postdoc, but I was very fortunate to have that experience, and it's been really nice. But there's definitely a ton of postdocs out there that you can look for and apply to. And the reason why I wanted to continue with a postdoc and not go right into, right into the field, I guess, even though I'm still in the field, is I wanted to figure out exactly where my place is here in Pittsburgh in the field of early childhood education, services, work. Knowing that I'm staying here, that I wanted to leverage those relationships, get a better understanding, get myself out there in the communities more, and figure out where I fit in best and what our community needs, how I can use my skills to then support our community here. So I knew where I wanted to be. Like, if you know a specific location, maybe you want a little bit more training. So with the postdoc, I'm gaining some extra experience doing my own research, some experience writing grants, extra experience publishing. So all of these, like having 2 more years to do this before fully going into the field, is going to really be helpful for beefing up my CV and just a better understanding of what exactly that is that I want to do.
Really good, Ashley. Thank you. You're right. We forge our own path, and it can look different from someone else, and also really maximizing those relationships that you get to build while you're in that program. Good. Thank you for that. Ed, what insight do you have on that?
Well, my experience was a little different in that, when I entered the program, my commitment was to return back to K-12 education. I really was not looking to go into research or be at the university level. And then the negative thing happened because of political pressures. The requirement for curriculum people in schools with specific training along those lines got dropped. The state never did come through with that requirement. So when I finished my program, Turned out, those who are familiar with K-12, certifications are critical. You can't hold a job unless you have a certificate for the job. And on the administrative level, leadership level, I had a certificate that was frankly useless. And I ended up doing postdoctoral work on the administrative level to get the administrative certificates that I needed. And my advice to people would be, I agree with what Otgo said. She was talking about this, both she and Ashley were talking about focusing your program, knowing what path you want to take, and make sure your experiences and the relationships and the activities and things that you do fit into that. And I would simply add to that the credentialing aspect of it. I actually had offers to go to different universities after that, but that was not my vision. That was not my North Star. And so I took a different path. And maybe there's some folks out there thinking along those lines, but add that credentialing piece. And the credential can be background experience activities, but could also be literally legal licenses.
That's really good advice, Ed. And I'm always telling my students to make themselves unique in some way. So whether it's a credential or it's just a different type of expertise, just making yourself sort of stand out or unique in that direction that you're hoping to go. Really good. Thank you, Ed. Next question. What did you learn in your PhD program? That could be soft skills or it could be hard skills that you believe is helpful in your current role? Otgo,
I can start. Happy to start. Research skills, research methodology, knowledge that I gained. Really, I think one thing I really honed on during my PhD program was I wanted to make sure that I gain a really good level of knowledge and skills on both quantitative and qualitative research methodology and methods. When I came to PhD program, my previous background was primarily related to qualitative research methodology. But in the PhD program, I wanted to diversify that. So it's again, it's something that you need to think about, whether you actually want to expand on your existing skills of research methodology or methods, or do you want to add on new things and diversify what you already know and can do? So that's another question you need to think about. And my decision at that point was, okay, I think my qualitative research methods is, has come to a certain level that I feel comfortable with. Now I just need to gain a little more knowledge about quantitative skills. So I really started taking lots of quant research methodology classes, which really helped me with very specific skills. And it's really those skills that came about really helpful in my job search as well. Especially when you're looking for a research position, that's one of the questions they ask. What skill, what methodology are you primarily have been using, and which skills you can actually offer to our research team? And that's where you need to shine. And that's where all the skills, quant skills I gained from my Pitt program really became very, very helpful. So these quantitative research skills that I gained from my program, I am using them still now in my current job. I mean, you just continue building up your skills. You learn new thing every single day. You read different textbooks and books every single day, but you need that foundation from your program. That's what I gained from Pitt, which I'm very, very grateful for.
Really good and very important as a researcher. Ashley, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Yeah. Second that. I came in with a fear, I think, of statistics and math, and just always, you know, through my grade school, high school education, even undergrad, was thinking, I'm not a math person. That's not for me. I don't have that math gene, believing all these false, these biases, you know, I'm a girl, I can't do that, things that I was fed as a child. And then I came to Pitt and for my PhD and took a couple of these statistic classes, just had amazing faculty members that actually took the time to help me understand it. And I was like, wow, I'm going to get my minor in this. So if I would have told myself as a kid, like, hey, little Ashley, you're going to be knowing how to do statistics and getting a minor in this, she wouldn't believe me. But that is definitely something that has set me apart. I think when applying minor in research methodology, I can run statistics, I can do analysis and that kind, all this quantitative data. I can understand that. That has been something that sets me, I've been able to use to set myself apart through different applications, and I'm using it all the time. I'm using it in my postdoc constantly for looking at evaluation, if we're doing a project, you know, continuous improvement. I'm using those skills. Another skill, I would say that honestly, sort of how to sit in discomfort was a skill that I've learned through my PhD program. I would say, like, I came into the PhD thinking I knew everything about equity and justice, and you know, I was on track with that and didn't need to learn anything, right? And then we had Dean Kinlock come, who's no longer here, but when she came, she really helped me see that I had a lot to grow with, and it was helpful to have that experience, and the whole vision that she had with changing our mission and vision at the School of Ed was amazing. And that helped me learn how to just sit in not knowing and discomfort, and how to build relationships and keep relationships going even after maybe something has happened. So sitting in that discomfort, working through building relationships, connections with others. And I use that every day, of course.
Really good, Ashley. Really good. Ed, what do you have to add here? Wait, we're muted on you, Ed. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Ed.
It was. Sorry.
There you go.
Again, I think of it more broadly, and maybe this is because it's been so long for me. And I would say it was probably in the general ability to be better at problem solving. And I learned a lot of that from, again, the advisors that I had in faculty, looking at problem solving in terms of like combining both lateral and vertical thinking, things like force field analysis, those kinds of issues, and applying those to things. Those are things I think I carried forward into everything else that I've done since then. And when someone said to me, what's the most significant thing you learned working on your doctorate, I said, it's not always enough to be right. You get into many situations where you think or know that you're right, but you need to be effective. How do you translate that into being effective? And I think the program definitely taught that to me. And I think that was something I just picked information from the various people that I worked with in the program, especially the faculty and advisors, in terms of how to address that situation, because I intended to be a change agent. And in order to be a change agent, I think you have to understand that principle. It's not always enough to be right. You have to find ways to be effective.
That's great advice. Well, I suspect you've been a change agent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked you to come on here and be part of this panel, Ed. So good work to you. I think that speaks volumes about our three panelists today. So this is some really, really good advice coming from a lot of good folks. So thank you so much for everything you've been giving us so far. We still have time. One question I wanted to, I wasn't planning on asking, but that I want to sort of throw out to the three of you. There is a lot of rejection involved in the PhD process, and even on the other side of the PhD, the rejection of publications and the rejection of grants. And it's just, that's one thing that I'm finding, even at this point in my career, I'm just not used to that still. And I still almost take the rejection personally. You know, you sort of put your life into a manuscript, you sort of send it out, and then it gets rejected by a journal, and you have to, you know, the reviewer comments and grant writing and all of these things. There's just a lot of rejection in our field. Have you found that to be true? And how do you sort of deal with the rejection that sort of comes along with that? Otgo, do you want to start? Do you have anything to add here? Or do you never deal with rejection?
Oh my goodness. Do you remember I said in the beginning how many applications I sent out just during my job search project process? So yeah, I face it very, very, very frequently, both during the PhD and after the completion of the degree. I think you used the key word that I was going to mention in your question, which was do not take it personally. Like, that's the key. Yes, it's going to happen. Nobody's going to be able to avoid it. It's going to happen even to the best of the people. It's part of this journey, especially in grad school level, doctoral program level, postdoctoral career. So really, do not take it personally. Think what I can take away from here and move on. My key thing, every time something did not work out as I expected, I always thought one thing was important for me: which part of this I can use for my next steps. So that was the key question. If I wrote a grant and it got rejected, I started thinking about which part of this grant proposal I can use for something else. Which part of this process, for example, of putting together a research team of 6 people coming from 5 different institutions, and we put together something and we got rejected. Which part of this process that I'm going to keep with me and use in my next step? So always try to find something positive and something still useful from that rejection and use it in your next step. That's my key advice.
That's really good, Otgo. That's great advice. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Ashley or Ed, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, definitely rejection happens. It happens a lot, and not taking it personally for sure, but that's so hard to do. We'll take it personally sometimes. And this is like, you work and it gets ripped apart and rejected, but I think just maybe stepping away. Oh, my internet. Okay, think back. I think stepping away from it for just a minute, that day, do not submit do not write back to the editor of the journal. Maybe write it down what you want to say and then rip it up, delete it. Getting all that out is okay. And exactly what you said, Otgo, that what can I take from this, and use it moving forward. Possibly it's just somebody had a bad day. I mean, we're all humans. We have so many things going on in our lives. We don't know. So maybe that reviewer number 2, right? Maybe they were having a bad day and they just got to review your paper and they didn't like it. That's just them. Update it, send it to another journal. I think persistence is really, and I would say that with anything throughout the PhD program, hit road bumps, you're going to hit road blocks, and just keep going. You can get there if you keep pushing through.
Good. Ed?
I agree with everything that Ashley and Otgo have said, especially two things. Don't take it personally, and also what can I learn from this? The only piece I might add is that sometimes we have to recognize that there isn't any rational reason for the rejection. It could be something that has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your work, nothing to do with the quality of something you've submitted. There are just other dynamics at play, and you can't do anything about those. There's always that thing about, what are the things I can change, what are the things I can't, and knowing wisdom to know the difference. Sometimes that becomes a part of it too when you're looking at that, so you don't get too frustrated with some of those, and stick to it, as Ashley said, be persistent.
Really good. I have to say too, the rejection can even be getting into a program that you're wanting to get into. My students always find it interesting that I actually didn't originally get into the PhD program at Pitt. And now I'm a professor in that department. So I tell them, just don't go away. Just keep at it. Exactly what you just said, Ed. So that's really good. Really good advice that you're all giving. One last formal question, and then we'll maybe take, I see one other question in the chat. And if you have questions in the audience, go ahead and type them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Okay, so if there was one piece of advice that you would share with those in PhD programs or those interested in maybe pursuing a PhD, what would it be and why? So you've already given some really good advice, but if you think of maybe sort of at that precipice of stepping into a PhD, what advice would you share? Otgo, do you have anything in addition to all of the nuggets of wisdom you've already given us?
I think the key question you should have an answer to already in your mind when you are putting together applications for PhD program is this the right time in my life to do this? Because just remember that PhD is a commitment. It requires lengthy process, a number of years. Really, you really need to focus on it, be committed, and be persistent. You're going to face obstacles, difficulties, rejections, but are you ready? Are you in this time of your life that you are going to be able to persist through all of that? Again, my experience might be different from many others. My PhD process had many obstacles. So many things have happened during those 5.5 years, including many things in my personal life, in my family life. So, and of course, you can't really foresee all of that when you are trying to make this decision, but to the extent of possible, do think about, is this the right time? Because it's going to require commitment, and are you ready for that commitment? So that's the key thing, I would say.
Really good. Ashley?
Yeah, like I said, the persistence. And I would also say advocating for yourself is a good skill to work on. I'm still learning it. So I'm not sure if you ever get there and you feel like I'm the best self-advocate ever, but learning to advocate for what you want and what you want out of your PhD, what you want to study, what you want to do, those opportunities you want to take, being persistent to keep following up if they don't happen right away, and advocating for yourself. I know, Otgo, you said so many things can happen, and even with your personal life, family. So, advocating if you need some time to be with family, if you need some time for your mental health, all of those things are important for you to actually complete the degree. So I think that's some advice I'd have, advocating for yourself.
Great, Ashley. Ed, do you have a piece of wisdom for us?
Yes. Although I just piggyback on top of what Otgo and Ashley have said, I think all those things are important. One other thing I think, and this kind of ties into what Otgo said, is to think about what resources is it going to require for you to really fulfill this. Having a very realistic perspective in terms of both time costs, financial costs, family costs, sacrifices you might have to make. And then the second part of that would be what resources are available to you or that you might be able to access. And a lot of times we underestimate what those are. I know when I got into the program, there were other students, and my advisors who helped me access resources that I didn't even know were available. So tap into those things and try and think about those ahead of time so that you can be prepared to do that.
All great advice. A question in the chat really speaks to, is it necessary to have certain skills coming into a PhD? So for someone who is trying to seek admission, this specific question asks about, is it necessary to have skills in structure equation modeling? So maybe answer that if you have a nugget about that, but also if there's something that you should really have when you're already starting to seek admission. And I suspect that's different per program that you're applying for, but Otgo, what do you have to say about this?
I think it really depends on the program, the university that you're selecting, the specific PhD program you're looking at. And most of those programs actually do provide some like description, right? What they're seeking for, what type of people they would encourage to apply to that specific program. So read that carefully and think about it, how that relates to you. But generally, I do not really think that you need a specific technical skills to go into a program. I feel like that's what you learn during those years. That's what PhD really exposes you into, broad, wide land of opportunity, a lot to choose from. And that's another thing. I think I struggled a lot in the beginning of my program, in my experience. So many courses to pick from, so many different ways you could shape your program into. So really thinking about, okay, this is what I want to do. Between these two classes, this one I'm going to pick. So those are the questions you will be, I think, dealing with in the beginning. But because the program itself gives you a lot of opportunities to learn and gain new skills, I do not really think there are many programs that put certain skills as a prerequisite. They may ask for a master's program or like a master's degree, maybe prerequisite, but I do not think there's a specific skills that you have to have, but I'm not sure. It really depends on the program you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Good. Do either of you have anything else to add to that?
Sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. Thanks, Ed. I just wanted to add, I don't believe that any program it would really ask if you had experience or skills with like structural equation modeling, unless it was specifically for like a statistical PhD, something like that. But one thing to know, I think, to have an understanding of when you're applying is who you want to work with. And Ed, I believe you spoke about this sort of at the beginning with who your advisor is going to be, who is going to be that person that's going to support you throughout. So getting to know their work, is it interesting? Is it along the lines of what you're interested in? And, so figuring out who that advisor or faculty member would be is something to think about, identify in your application.
Good advice. Go ahead, Ed. What were you going to add?
Well, I was going to add that I agree that it's program specific, but I think folks that are contemplating something like this have probably been pretty successful academically. So they probably should have a lot of confidence in the things they already know how to do, what they know, and especially if you've narrowed yourself down to a particular area. You probably have developed a lot of skills in that area. Don't sell yourself short on those, because you'll have to bring those forward. And I agree with Otgo, that what you're going to learn is going to build on that. But you already have a base. And I would just reemphasize what Ashley mentioned, again, who's that person you're working with? What kind of expertise do they have? Because you're going to learn an awful lot from those people you're closest to. And those are the people, the faculty you're working with, your advisors. They're the ones that are going to help you develop the skills that you need.
Great. Really good. And it also reminds me of something Ashley said, where she sort of came in and said, oh, I'm not smart enough to learn math, or I'm not good at math. And, so and what Otgo said, like, you come in, that's where you learn. So, maybe try not telling yourself what you don't have to come into the program, and really be open to what you can learn there from your advisors, like you both have just said. So great advice. Really good. One more question that maybe we have time for. What were you going to give me some instructions, Latoya?
I really quickly. There's two that are actually in the Q&A that I wanted to make sure we got to.
Oh, okay, great.
Through. So one was about how many hours should be allocated to studying daily on average. And the other one was kind of about your experience in Pittsburgh, like how you felt the community was and like being welcoming, and like your experience in just living within the city of Pittsburgh. So those two are two that I know came through a little bit ago.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can anyone speak to either of those, your experience in Pittsburgh, and how many hours a day you would recommend allocating towards your studies, if you have opinions about either of those things?
I will start with how I found living in Pittsburgh was great city, lovely city. I still think it's one of my most favorite places in the whole country. And I came from outside, so I came to Pittsburgh for my PhD program, not having lived there before. So, and I found it a home, really beautiful, wonderful community with various different neighborhoods. I thought at the same time a nice, it's not as large as other big cities, not too small either. It's like a perfect size American city with really nice mix of cultural art activities and events and venues. In sports, of course, I have to mention. So it's a great place to live. And great place to live is a grad student as well. Parks are wonderful. It's great for long walks. Libraries are great. In the University of Pittsburgh, I really had really good experience. It was very challenging for me for various different reasons, but it's an institution, is a higher education institution. It's really wonderful place that will support you throughout the process. Just be sure that try to reach out to people whenever you need them. Remember that as soon as you land in there, as soon as you become part of that campus community, there are so many services and things that are there already for grad students, for PhD students. Just be aware of them and do not forget to reach out to them when you need them, because those people are there to help you and support you. In terms of how many hours, I can't remember, I cannot come up with a specific number, but I also worked throughout my PhD program. I was a research assistant at the university, so I always had a part-time job throughout. And so I was full-time PhD student, taking full-time credits, courses, and part-time researcher. So yes, I had a very busy life. I would say you have to at least be able to devote 2 hours every day, in addition to the time you need to go to classes and do the other research related stuff, if research is your job.
like your part-time job. So just to study for your classes as a student, at least spend 2 hours a day. Again, this is just on average on very regular days, but then, the end of the semester, it's completely different picture. When the deadlines for the papers come close, that's a completely different picture. I always worked in the weekend. It's because I worked Monday through Friday, my part-time job, my weekends was basically primarily spent on my school-related work. So, but not like 24 hours on the weekends, but certain hours on the weekends are 100% expected to be spent on your studies. Lots of hours in the library. Oh, by the way, I have to mention, Pitt libraries are the best. And I've been to several university libraries in my life, even after graduation. So I've been part of a universities is my job, and I've been to different libraries. I felt like, I don't know, maybe I'm biased. Pitt libraries are really, really good. It's so accommodating. So yeah, I spend many hours there.
We do have great libraries. And when you're in your dissertation process, the number of hours that things take goes way up. So that's just
that goes.
And it's, you just live like that for that period of time. And then it's sort of like the capstone end of the road. So you just kind of hang in there through that. Really good.
So that's the thing, maybe I should clarify. PhD experience comes in different stages, right? The first couple of years is like full-time student stage where you have to collect this credits. And then after that, you work on your proposals and your comprehensive exams, all those exams. And after all of that is done, you work on your dissertation proposal. After your dissertation proposal is defended, you actually start writing your dissertation. So each of this stage of your 5 to 6 years has very different time schedule, I must say. So when you're on the dissertation writing stage, it's 24 hours. Your mind, your head is occupied by that one thing fully, basically. So just be ready, I guess, psychologically, emotionally ready for that commitment, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right, good. Ashley or Ed, do you have anything to add on the Pittsburgh or amount of studying per day in a program?
Well, I would just add, I've chosen to live in Pittsburgh all my life, although I had opportunities to go many other places. So I think it's one of the best places to be. And of course, I'm still involved with Pitt. Obviously, I think the university is a fantastic place for anybody. The only thing relative to time I would say to people, it's going to vary, but you should plan on and expect it to be intense. And, but also be ready to modify and adjust depending on the other things that happen. There can be personal family things. There can be work experiences, changes. And so you've got to be ready to make some changes in terms of time that you can commit, but expect it to be intense.
Good, good. Ashley, anything to add?
I hope my internet connection stays stable for this.
Okay.
Just that for the hours, I think you'll figure it out pretty quickly when you start taking classes, that it is a commitment, but you'll figure out which classes you actually need to read very intensely, every word of the article or the book that is the homework, and then skim and get the gist. So it's sort of taking that learning experience. As for Pittsburgh, I'm born and raised here. I love it here. So can't say anything more. Love it here. Hail to Pitt.
Very good. Excellent. I know I had a 5-year-old daughter when I started the PhD program, so I wasn't able to put in the hours that everyone else was able to put in who maybe did not have children or, so it's different per person. And I did rely on the weekends to really get caught up on things. I know, Otgo, you spoke to that. And, some people are early risers and they like to rise and grind and, get things in. And some people are late nighters. And you're really, by that point, you have a really good understanding of what type of learner you are and how much time. And like Ashley said, some classes are really difficult for you and you spend more time on and, more than others. So we are at time. So I don't know, Latoya, am I needing to kind of wrap up here?
Well, yes, I definitely just wanted to say thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. And of course, Dr. Sherman for leading us the charge today as well. We definitely don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, as we know we are definitely at time, but we did want to make sure Jordan, as being a current PhD student and also our assistant director for student programs here at the School of Education, if he can drop his email in the chat if anybody is a current student and they just need some connections in our PhD programs, we are here for you. I'm also going to drop in the chat if anybody is considering admissions at the University of Pittsburgh School of Education for one of our PhD programs. My information is there, along with my colleague Shabana Reza, who does manage the PhD program applicants. Contact information is there as well. And we do, for those who have like a few questions about like admissions and what that process is, we have 2 more open houses that are coming up. It's our last 2 for this season, and they are tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. It is virtual. And then those who are specifically international students, we have a specific session dedicated to our international students that will be on Thursday, November 9th at 8:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for both of those. So look up your specific time zones to make sure they are prepared. But I put that link in the chat. So if you guys want to join us to learn more about admissions, it is there for you. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. And please reach out if you guys need anything. We will try to make this recording available for all of you who have joined today. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see you. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you.